Wondering what's next in your business or personal life? Welcome to Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings, a podcast dedicated to helping you with all of life's challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. Whether you're seeking a new career, retirement, or simply wanting to make an impact in your community or the world. Join Jen Duplessis and her guests as they explore how to start, what to do when you're in the thick of a change or growth, and how to leave a mark in this world after breaking through your next achievement. You are moments away from the aha you've been seeking.
Welcome to the show. I'm so delighted that you joined us here today. And Kelly and I are sitting here chit-chatting about all kinds of fun stuff. So Kelly, first of all, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm just excited to be here with you.
Me too. So, I had this opportunity to meet Kelly on the Marketers Cruise. And so often, on the show here, I'll say, hey, we met on the Marketers Cruise, which is why I need to tell you that you need to go on the Marketers Cruise. So just a quick little plug here, and we'll make sure we have it in the link too. Go to marketerscruise.com. And then when you decide that you want to come, and by the way, it's selling out really quickly already. And we just finished what, 3 weeks ago, Kelly?
I know, exactly. Yeah,
the 9th, I don't know, as we're filming this.
It hasn't even been a month.
A month ago, we were on the cruise. And, but I mean, I think like 70% of it's already sold for next year. So yeah, you got to get on the cruise. And then when you decide to get on the cruise, when you scroll down, it says who invited you, because it's by invite only. Scroll down and find Lady Jen, and then I get credit for doing all that. So, but yeah, so here we are again, another person that I met on the Marketers Cruise, although we never really met. Right. We've had some conversations since. And I thought it was just pretty interesting because someone would point out and go, have you talked to Kelly? Have you talked to Kelly? And you were clear across the room and I couldn't tell. And, I'm like, I think I see her. I don't see very well far away. So I was like, I think I see her. I don't know. But I'm just happy to have you here, and, something fun that you do. And we're going to talk about your story too here in a minute, but you own Woodhouse Publishing, which is your own publishing company, and you help authors from beginning to end. And we're going to talk about all the pieces in between and all of that. That's really what you do. But I want to talk about your story here in a minute. So again, thank you so much for coming here and joining us. So let's talk about your story, because this is Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. And boy, have you had a bunch of ceilings in your life. So tell us a little bit about what this happened. What happened to you when you were a child?
You're right, Jenna. I was so excited to meet you. I know we didn't have a chance to talk on the cruise, but I was so excited when I got the email from you saying, hey, Cal, we got to connect. And I can tell we're going to have a really long friendship and everything. And
yeah,
I love that. So, yeah. And Jen, you've got a 2-year-old grandson, right?
So do you.
And I do too. Yeah, and I do too. And what's special about the number 2 is that 2 years old is when my life changed. So that's we lived on a farm, and my cousins were throwing shingles in the fire, and a spark came out and landed on my dress. And then I exploded into flame, and I got burnt to 75% of my body with 3rd-degree burns. And so every 2 days I would be in the operating room for 4 months. And then every 2 years until I was 20 years old, I'd have more surgeries. And they needed me to grow taller so that they'd have more skin to work with, so they could do more skin grafts and all that. So, my whole childhood was consumed with my scars and feeling better and being able to, just kind of try and be normal. I walked past my teacher's desk, and I saw a picture that someone had drawn of me, and it was a circle with scribbles all over it, and it said Scarface. And that was in grade 5.
Wow.
And so, of course, you know what it's like, Jen. We just want to be pretty. We want to be beautiful, and pretty girls don't have scars on their face. And so I knew that I was the Scarface girl. And of course, I was upset about it because I realized that my scars were never going away. My doctor was trying to take my scars away. I would pray to God and say, dear God, please don't make me wake up in the morning. But if I have to, can I at least be scarless so I can be pretty like all the other girls? And of course, I woke up, and of course, the scars were still there. So I thought I was always going to be the ugly Scarface girl, and I never thought I'd get married or have kids or anything like that. And so that's the overall gist of my story.
Yeah, I have a ton of questions for you, obviously. So, I guess the first thing that I have a question about is that, you said a spark hit your dress and blew up in flames. I mean, why not? Why did it not? I mean, why? Why did that happen? Do you know? Were you told why that happens? Because, I mean, we get sparks on us all the time when we're sitting by a fire.
So, so I don't remember the accident, but what I think happened was,
Mhm.
for one thing, I was wearing a rayon dress, which is flammable. And the other thing is, I think that the spark landed on my dress, and then I think I walked around the barrel, and then
Uh,
that's where my cousins were, and I think that's when I was, you know, in flames. So I
yeah.
think it took that
Like
to
a
happen.
combination. And we have different, materials now. I mean, we still have rayon. I'm thinking, how many of my dresses are rayon? I better go and check right now, right? But okay, and then why a surgery every 2 days? I can see over time as you grow and your skin, and they do skin grafts and all of that, but why every two
Why
days?
every 2 days?
How difficult is that to be under anesthesia and all of that?
Because they didn't want me to feel any more pain than I was already feeling. And because I was two, so what they would do is they would put me in the operating room, like to take out my stitches or to do
Oh, I
skin
see.
grafts, or when someone gets burnt, they have to take off the dead skin.
Right,
So
they've
they
changed
would,
the dressings.
yeah,
Yeah.
they debride it. So then they would put me to sleep to do that. So because they didn't
Yeah.
want me to have to feel that kind of pain
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
2-year-old, because it's just excruciating pain. So anytime they knew they were going to have to put me in pain, they would put me to sleep to do the surgery.
When did you, because it too, a traumatic thing that happens to you, and you said you don't even remember the accident because, too, it's hard. Like, I think I kind of remember a 3-year-old birthday. I saw pictures, but I can't put my head in there and kind of see people. So for me, when I look back on my childhood, it's really hard for me to discern when I started remembering things. So
Yeah.
when do you feel that you started remembering things and why? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like a scene in a movie. It's like how when we switch from scene to scene, it's like click, that's off, and then boom, this is on, and you're in a hospital and you're getting
Yeah.
grafts done. And tell us about that a little bit. I'm trying to wrap my head around why, how that felt and what that looked like for you.
Yeah. And that's an excellent question. So, I have, like, I don't have a lot of memories of before 5, but I do have a couple memories. And one of the memories I have is when they took me down to the operating room. It was down in the basement, and kind of like in some of the movies where they make it look kind of eerie, right? And
Right.
I
Scary.
remember that, and I remember them taking me into the operating room, and I remember the nurse saying to me, "What do you need? How can I help you?"
Hmm.
And I said, "I need water." And she went and got a face cloth, and she filled it up with water, and then she dripped it into my mouth. She squeezed the water into my mouth.
Wow.
And then of course I remember them saying, "Okay, count backwards." And so
Mm,
I had to have been a little bit older. I couldn't have been 2 then, because I wouldn't have known how to count. So I
right.
think I had to have been like anywhere from 3 to 4 when that happened. And then I do have a memory of being in the bed, but it was a crib. And I
Hmm.
remember my parents, or the nurses and my parents saying, "Okay, it's bedtime now. You got to go to sleep. Go to sleep now." And I said no. And my
Yeah.
parents said, "Why?" And I said, "Because you won't be here when I wake up."
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right. And then after that, I don't have any memories until I was 5. And then I remember going to kindergarten, and then I start remembering my surgeries and the pain and all that.
And the
So,
bullying and everything else that happened with it. Yeah. Yeah. With
right.
everything
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you look fantastic. And I'm curious how this, progress. I think it's, I mean, it's an inside job, right? Everything that you're doing is an inside job for yourself now. And, that you've got to work that piece, those pieces of it and things. But I think that, I mean, I just can't imagine what you were going through. So I know one of the things that you talk about. Well, let me ask you this before I start talking about how you help people aside from just writing books. But let me ask you this: what pain, if any, are you in today, and how is this? Are you way beyond needing any surgeries, needing any of that, or are you in a nice happy place now that will affect you at some point when you get older, that you're going to see something come back and rear its ugly head?
It's really that's an excellent question. So I don't have any physical pain, but I do have some scars that are really, really tight. And so the interesting thing they say, like I always thought as I got older that my skin would loosen up, but scars actually do the opposite. They
Oh,
actually they tighten as
well,
you get
there's a lot
older.
of women who would like that.
I know.
Including myself, right?
so so I haven't had a lot of reconstructive surgeries after 20, but I did have laser surgery.
Oh,
So yeah, starting in about I think 10 years ago. And
yeah,
with the laser surgery, Jen, you know how they aerate the lawn and they go and they drill little holes in the grass and
yeah,
it pulls out
yeah,
the chunks of grass? Okay,
yeah.
so that's what this laser does. It's called the CO2 laser. And so it would drill holes in my scars and pull out the old scar tissue. And then it would allow new skin to grow.
Degenerate, yeah.
Yeah, to generate. And so that's I've done probably 30 times where
Wow.
they've done my whole chest. So like my whole chest is burnt all the way to the middle of my back, both my arms, my face, and I've got a bald spot and a little bit on my leg. So and then I have like one scar, like um this arm was actually joined to my body, to my elbow.
Oh, okay,
And they
gotcha.
had to slice it open and then they put me in a body cast to here. So this arm has like a scar that goes all the way down to my back. And so that one I feel is getting tighter and I should go back for more laser surgery, but I just
Thank
haven't
God
made
there's
the
laser
time.
surgery now, though. Really, honestly, I mean, that's just an incredible advancement in medicine, that helps us for a lot of things, right? Because
It is.
I do infrared, but I don't do,
Oh,
yeah, I do infrared just for, waking up my fat cells. Let's be honest. Yeah, I do that to try to trim things down, trim things.
Yep.
Wow. Well, and I know that as advancements go on, it's going to get better and better. As you get older, it's going to get even better and better for you. So that, my dad had this saying of, I'd rather wear out than rust out. And that'll probably be one of the worst things that you would encounter is rusting out and having the pain on top of the rusting out that we have as adults, right? As older people, right? Some of us have that
Right.
rust out thing where we have back issues and this, that, and the other issues too. So, okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And I just wanted to know where you are now physically, if
Yeah.
you're, in a lot of pain or if you're, feeling pretty great. Okay, so let's talk about. We will talk about books here in a minute, but I want to talk about scars, right?
Yeah.
I had a really long, it was supposed to be a 15-minute call, and it ended up being a really long phone call that we had because we just were talking about everything and everything. We were, and I said, look, I don't want to compare, me and this, that, and the other, but we all have scars.
Absolutely.
We
We
all
do.
have scars in our lives. So, what
Yeah.
have you done? Because I know that you've done a lot of work in this too, in helping people heal scars, or the glass ceiling they went through and it hurt. Right, it hurt
It
as they
does.
went through that glass ceiling, and now you're past that, and you're on the top of this ceiling and saying, "Yeah, I made it through." And of course, we all have scars. I mean, glass ceilings that we
We do.
encounter all day long. But you've made it through in this world. So, what story are you telling people that are going through a period of time that's traumatic, physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever the case may be? It could be in business too. What's the story that you're telling them about? Making sure that, hey, these are scars, are just scars and you can
Yeah.
fix them.
I love that you bring up the whole point about scars, because actually one of my topics that I speak about is called "Not All Scars Are Visible,"
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. I mean, going through a divorce, that develops a scar. Going through a breakup,
Mhm.
medical problems. Like, everybody has scars. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of what are you going to do with that scar.
Mhm.
Are you going to use that scar to enhance your life or enhance somebody else's life, or are you going to use it to hold yourself back in life? And so, um, it's interesting. I have a little story about that. A friend of mine came up to me, and she's known me, like we've been to school together, high school together, and she had to have a heart surgery, and so she's got scar right down here in the middle of her chest where the doctor had to open her up and fix her heart.
Right.
And she's going on and on about it, and she's like, like, I can't wear clothes that, show my scar. And she's talking about going to, this clothing store and making sure that the lady doesn't, let her wear clothes that show her scar. And
Oh,
she's going on and
V-necked.
on and
Right.
on,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden she stopped, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking to the wrong person."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Yep," because I didn't say a whole word. I just let
Right.
her just vent and go on and on and on for like 20 minutes. And she's like, I said, "Do you want me to take that scar for you?" I said, "I'll happily take your scar." I said, "You know what? That doctor knew how to fix your heart. You wouldn't be alive today if that doctor didn't give you that scar."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I know, I know." And
I
I'm
know.
like,
And we always there's a saying in here, and I can't remember what it is, but there's a saying in here is like, well, he who is without sin casts the first stone, right? It's sort of and it's not in that line, but it's, be careful what you wish for. You never know what someone else is going through. There's a saying in here, and
yeah,
I can't figure out what it is, but it is that way, is that when we're at our lowest and we feel like the world's worse, daddy yada, someone else is worse off than we are.
yeah. I think it's like, I think what people don't understand is that we go through things so we can help other people. So, for example, my son was violated by a girl when he was like 15 years old. Okay. And so he was really upset and very suicidal. And he said, "Mom, why did this happen to me? I didn't deserve it." And I said, "Okay, did I deserve to get burned as a 2-year-old?" He goes, "Well, no." I said,
Right.
"And what am I doing about it?" Because you're
Yeah.
helping people, you're speaking, you're writing. Exactly. I said, "Do you think that maybe this happened to you because maybe further on down the line, some young guy is going to have something like this happen to
Yeah.
him, and
Yeah.
you're going to be that person to help him because you're going to know what it took to get you through it." And
Yeah.
so that's why I say that our scars are our gift. They're not a
Hmm.
tragedy, they're a gift. I
Hmm.
mean, you know what it's like, Jen. I mean, if something was to ever happen to our little 2-year-old grandson, we would be devastated,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
would think their life is over. We'd be like, "Oh my God, this is horrible. Life is over for them." But what if that 2-year-old, does 2 TEDx talks, has a Goalcast video with 10 million views, has a documentary about life story, is and speaking all over the world, and impacting all these people? Would you really say that that little 2-year-old getting burnt as a 2-year-old is a tragic thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
You wouldn't. Yes. No, you wouldn't. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, exactly. You think it's tragic that you have to go through all that pain and the staring and the
Right.
teasing and the bullying and all that. But then you would see the positive side of it and say, "Oh my gosh, but none of that amazing stuff would have happened if she didn't get burnt as a
Yeah,
2-year-old."
yeah. And I mean, even in my own story that I've talked about in the show before, growing up, as a daughter of an alcoholic, and my mother was my first bully, and being poor and being told I would be worthless, you know, if they did, and I thanked my uncle for telling me, you wouldn't be worthless and you'd be just like them. Because if he didn't, I wouldn't propel myself, right? I wouldn't have that inner desire and drive to prove otherwise, to show them what I could do. And I think that, that's where perseverance and, resilience really comes in and really makes the strongest people. I hear people say all the time, your message, but I actually think your message is your mission. I think it's your mission. It's not my message out there. It's my mission to provide a message to those that I may never even know I've touched, right? And in your case, your son, right? He will never know who he's touched and made a big difference. He might. There'll be a few people that will come up to him and say, "You changed my life," but it becomes the mission first, before it becomes the message. And I think that that's, super powerful. And I love that you're sharing that story. You have an acronym for SCARS, don't you?
I do, and now I can't remember what it is.
Okay, well, I won't put you on the spot. But I kind of remember you telling me that you had an acronym.
Yeah, because I was working on it. I'm working on a new keynote message, and so we were making a message or an acronym for SCARS. But yeah, I don't know it well enough to share it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I think it's cool, and I think it's going to be memorable, and it attaches or anchors the cognitive thinking about scars, that people will walk around and say, "Oh my gosh, that's right, scars. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't, self-loathe and whatever." But change that into something that's really good. Okay, so I know that you're a publisher now and you help people write their books and help people with speaking, etc. But was there something you did in between that, you went out and sought out to do, and then you had that trigger moment or that tipping point where you said, "Oh no, this is what I need to be doing. This is how I tell my story," and share it with others, and then help others tell their stories too. So tell us how that kind of came about.
Yeah, that's an excellent story, because I was one of these people that could never just stay with one job or one business. I don't know what it was about me. I just get bored.
Because you were on a path to this. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And now I've been a speaker for 15 years, but I've never been able to stay at a job for more than 2.5 years. So anyways, I had this business, and it was a mobile scrapbook store. So it was a cube van that my husband had converted into a store for me.
Yeah.
So I go to this women's business mixer, and I meet this lady, Charmaine, and she said, "Kelly, you need to sell that business you're in and be a speaker." And I was like, "What? I'm a burn survivor. So what?" And she's like, "No, people will be inspired by your story." Now, I I didn't see it, because at that point in my life, I was in a toxic marriage. I was in a dead end job. My business was bankrupting us, and there was nothing good going on in my life other than my 3 kids. And so I didn't see it. So I went home that night and I said to my husband, "I'm going to be a speaker." And he said, "Well, who's going to listen to you?"
Mm. And you know what?
Right?
Let me just stop, because he's saying and you and I talked about this. You can say why he said it, but we all have naysayers at home.
We do.
We all do. But so anyway, so continue on with what he said to you, though.
Yeah. And so I said, "I don't know, but it's going to happen."
Mm-hmm.
Those are my words to him. And
Yeah.
so, that night went to bed, and then he proceeded to tell me, like, like, "You're not a success. You're, I don't
Imposter
understand."
syndrome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I don't get it, because he saw we were almost bankrupt. He saw that our marriage wasn't very good. He's thinking Oprah Winfrey, Anthony Robbins, these big successful people. Those are the speakers of the world, not little Kelly, who's almost bankrupt and blah blah blah, right? So he thought you already had to be a success in order to be a speaker.
Mm.
And so I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Well, I just think you're picking a hard career." And I said, "I don't know how it's going to happen, but it would have been really easy for me to listen to him and say, 'You're right. I can't be a speaker,' and then not do it. Or do I listen to my new friend and my new mentor, Charmaine, who says, 'Kel, I'm going to help you. And so what she did is she got me and her on a stage together, and we did like an Ellen show so that it would be really easy for
Right.
me.
Right. And
And
yeah.
yeah, and that was the start of it. And
Yeah.
so I was just so grateful that she, took me by the hand and said, "Come on, you're going to do this." And we did it. And that was 15 years ago when
Yeah.
I walked on stage. And it wasn't, that actually wasn't the very first time, because when I was in 4-H as a teenager, I think I was like 13 at the time, we had to do a speech, and I won the speaking competition.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Yeah, so here I was. I could say I was an award-winning speaker when I was like 13 years old. So here the universe was already
Yeah.
showing me, hey, you're going to be a speaker when I was 13, but I just, of course, didn't
Didn't see
listen.
the signs. Yeah. Didn't see the signs.
So
I
when
love,
I was 44 is when I stepped on the stage for, the first
yeah.
time. But there are a lot of burn survivors out there who don't see the gift in their story. And
Yeah.
they use it to hold themselves back and say, "Oh, poor me, look at me. I'm so ugly. All these things have happened to me. Why did they happen to me?" Or you can go and do something like me. And like last week was Burn Awareness Week. So me and another burn survivor, we spoke to 9 schools in 5 days, and
Wow.
talking about our stories of how we got burnt. He got burnt as an adult. I got burnt as a child. I talked about the bullying. We talked about, safety and prevention and stuff like that. And we helped 3,800 kids we spoke
Yeah.
to over the week.
Yeah.
So
Well, and now today, kids are encouraged to, accept diversity, accept, people in
they are.
wheelchairs and, I mean, whatever the case may be, that diversity is, so
Yeah.
important. And yeah, oh my gosh, I think that's wonderful. And I bet they were in awe, just everything, hearing it, and excited to hear it.
Yeah.
I love that. So what transpired that took that into writing? Why the writing? Because, a lot of people get on stage and start
Yeah.
speaking and then they go down the path of, pitching programs, program pitching, or, it's, someone always, always ask me what I do. And I say, well, I always say now I say I'm an international award winning professional speaker, but they say, oh, are you a motivational speaker? And my response is, oh God, I hope not. Because because motivation is short-lived, right? And I'm like, I hope I
Yeah.
don't motivate anybody. I hope
Yeah.
I'm inspirational, because that's an inside job, right? That you're seeing
Yeah.
my passion and, the drive that I have to inspire people and help people learn and change and grow and all that. But motivation is just like, hey, this is, rah rah shish kumbaya and go do it, and then no one follows up with you. So so
Yeah.
why did you start going in that direction of writing? And or maybe it wasn't writing, maybe it was publishing first and then getting into writing.
No, actually what happened is that when I became a speaker, my speaker coach at the time, she says, "Kelly, now that you are a speaker, you have to have a book." And I was like,
Ah,
"What?
I've
I
been down
do
that
not
road.
know how to write a book." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know how to write a book." No, like I'm thinking J.K. Rowling and Stephen King that take years to write books. And I'm like,
Right,
I
right.
I I can't do this. Like, no.
Yeah.
And then I met this other lady who represents writers. She's an editor, and she has these book publishers. So she said, "Well, I'll pitch your book to my publisher." And I'm like, "Okay, sir." Well, the publisher said no. She didn't think I had enough of a story. And I said, "Yeah, but my speaker coach says I have to have a book. So I have to figure out how to do this,
Right.
right?" So even though the woman said no, I'm like, "Too bad, I'm doing this." And so that's when self-publishing was, coming out. And so I figured out how to write a book, and then I got a couple friends to edit it for me. So that was 15 years ago. And then what happened is I actually ended up divorcing my husband. I divorced him, and I
Another,
also had a,
yeah.
yeah. And then 5 months later, I lost my full-time job. My boss said to me, she said, "You know what? Sometimes somebody else has to make a decision for you." And she
Yes.
says, "Are you going to be excited to come to work on Monday, or relieved if you don't have to?" And I was like, "Oh."
Mm,
And
yeah.
that question hit me right to my chest. And I was like, I would be relieved. And I went home from work that day, and I had this Christian Businesswoman's magazine, And I'm flipping through the pages, and the pages are all saying, follow your passion full time, follow your passion full time. And I come to the middle, and in big black letters, it says, why do you not trust that God will provide you everything you need?
Yeah.
And I slammed the magazine shut. I was so mad. I was like, I know you want me to be a speaker, but I just left my marriage 5 months ago. I'm living in the basement of my aunt and uncle's house. I don't even have my kids with me full time. And you want me to be a speaker, like full time? Like, I can't do this.
He was
And
saying,
then,
take the wheel, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I heard that little voice say, are
Yeah.
you going to be excited to come to work on Monday or relieved if you don't have to? And I went to work the next day, and I sent my boss an email, and I said, you are right. Today's my last day. And I packed up my office and I left. And
Yeah.
that was my start of me being a speaker full time,
Yeah.
and an author. And then 6 months later, my second book came out, because my other mentor said, you have to be a best-selling author. And I'm like, I don't know how to be a best-selling author. I don't have 10,000 friends that are going to buy a book from me, because that's what
Right.
I thought, right?
Right.
And she's
Right.
like, no, you just need to get into the top 100.
Right.
And
Right. We all know that secret. And if you don't know that secret, you have to get in touch with Kelly because
exactly,
we know
that's
that secret.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so she said, look, you're going to get more stages, you're going to get a higher fee, you'll have way more opportunities, you've got to be a best-selling author. And 5 months later, I finished that book, Self-Esteem Doesn't Come in a Bottle, and it became a best-selling book. That was, yeah. So, and now I've written 15 of them. And when COVID hit, of course, I lost all my speaking gigs. I mean, you know what that's all
So did
about,
I.
Jen.
Yep.
We all lost everything.
Right.
And so I had to pivot, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I've got 3 teenage kids living with me full time. What am I going to do? And I laid on the couch for a week. And then I thought, I guess I'm going to do this book thing. And that was when I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And COVID has actually been my best years financially ever.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
because everybody's looking to do that same pivot and say, now what do I do? Yeah, I'm laughing. I was laughing at the whole thing because someone told me that too. You know, it's like, you got to have a book. And I was like, do I have to really have a book? And then all of a sudden there's a book after a book after a book. And I'm like, how do I have all these books? It's scary. I mean, I'm like freaking out because all these books are coming out. And here I fought it so hard and said, well, I've already been successful as a speaker. I don't need a book. And I still don't know if I feel like I need a book to be on stage, but because it's one of the last things I say in my bio. But
right.
yeah, I don't say that first. But yeah, I mean, it's not that important, but now it's what I have inside of me that I'm trying to get out, right? So I have all these things, and I think it's
Yeah.
great for my grandkids, as your grandkids too, is that you have something
Yeah.
that's out there in perpetuity that I don't have from my
Yeah.
parents. I don't have from my grandparents. I have memories, I have stories that I can kind of remember. We have some photos that aren't really good with fingerprints, fingers in front of them
Yeah.
because, and I thought, wow, this is a really great way for us to be able to do it. But I want to talk about as we finish up our time here together. I want to talk a little bit about what are some of the mistakes that authors are making in the whole. You can talk about the whole, any part of the process. Is it? And so I'm going to kind of guide this just a little bit. Is it that they take too long to write? Is it that they hire people that don't have their voice when they do use a ghostwriter? Is it that they pitch it to 4 people and it never makes bestseller and it just sits and it starts, getting dust? Is there not enough promotion on the backside, not long enough promotion, not the right promotion? What do you think is the number one thing from all these things could be wrong, okay, but or not creating the return on the investment for you or the giving you opportunities, but what do you think is the biggest problem that
They,
authors have?
you're gonna love this one. They don't start.
Oh.
That's what it
Yeah,
is.
I've
They
been
don't
writing a
even
book for
start.
8 years. I've been thinking
They
about a book for 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah, they just don't start. They don't know how to write that first word. And so
Yeah.
because they don't know how to write the first word, they don't even start at all. And they think, oh, this is going to be so hard. But nowadays, like, I'm writing books with AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm
And like
helping it,
even
formulate a sentence for me, you know.
yeah, like this one, like, do you want to stay in your poopy diaper? That's a parable. That's the one I brought on the cruise.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a parable. And I wrote it with AI. I was in Mexico and I was sick one day and I was like, okay, this book is based on the 6 questions that my best friend asked me when I was going through my divorce.
Yeah.
I signed my divorce papers. I'm crying my eyes out. I'm like, what the heck? Why am I crying? I wanted the divorce and I don't want the man back. So I don't
Right.
understand why I'm crying.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, do you want to stay in your poopy diaper? And I said, no. And so,
Yeah.
so she said, well, let's get on, well, Skype back then.
Yeah.
And let's do this. So she asked me 6 questions.
Yeah.
And I wrote down those 6 questions because I thought, you know what? These 6 questions are going to be so important someday. I just know it. And so I wrote them down. And of course, it stopped me from crying and I moved forward.
Yeah.
So I put that story into Chat GPT and said, okay, here's the story
Yeah.
and write me a parable. And so it wrote me this whole parable. And
Yeah.
then what I did is I also did a card deck. Yeah. So I put the book back in and said,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And so I had it create a card deck for me. And with this card deck, like it broke things down into like 5 different categories,
Colors. Uh-huh. Yeah. I see
right?
that. Yeah.
And then it helped me write all the background, like, and it
Oh,
even
that's
put like the
awesome.
questions in, and it
Yeah.
made up some more questions.
Well, and
And
I love this is what I love about
oh,
AI because I have a book coming out at the end of the year, right? And I inserted a lot of my speaking, a lot of my audio, I needed it to learn me and my writing, my previous writing. I uploaded all of my books and
yeah,
the chapters from all the books I've been in. I've been in like 27 books or wrote forwards for books, and that tells stories too.
yeah,
And I uploaded all that and I had it learn me. And then I said, okay, so now based on you knowing me, I want to write a book about, and it's a parable as well. And it didn't write the whole thing. It wrote an outline and then I had to force it to say,
yeah,
no, I need you to write the chapters too, because I want that. But now
yeah,
I'm going through and I'm genizing it more, putting in, oh, I want to put that story in and really
yeah,
moving away from AI and putting it into, some of my own words, because sometimes AI
yeah.
doesn't pick up. I had a ghostwriter once in my very first book, and he said, blah, 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 blah. And then it petered out. And I was like, ooh, I would never use that word. I would say it diminished, right? Or
Yeah.
it started diluting the process or something like that. And I was like, okay, now I need to get my voice in. But I think it's a great way to get started because I wrote that the skeleton of my book, I wrote in about 20 minutes.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then it was like,
absolutely.
okay, now I can go back into chat and say, okay, I still don't like the direction it's going. Let's have a different direction. Yeah. So I think that's really a very important thing. And I have said that too, is like, I had a ghostwriter for my first book because I started going once upon a time. No, it
No.
happened on an email. No, there I was. No. And I couldn't get the first sentence out. So I loved that you said that because it's so in alignment with what prevented me. And I said, okay, I'm going to get a ghostwriter to help me do this.
Yeah,
They're very expensive, but now we have an AI who is a ghostwriter for us, and it's not expensive.
exactly. Well, and then I even did children's books. Like these I did
Oh,
for my
beautiful.
grandson, right? So
I
this
love
one
it.
is Monkey See, Monkey Do, Kai's Potty
Oh,
Adventure.
you
So
have to
here
send
we
that
are.
to me. You have to send that to me because that's going to be happening soon for both of our little ones, right?
I know, right? And then this is Kai's second birthday,
Oh, wow.
right? And then this is the color book
Yeah.
because my grandson or my son is colorblind, so he can't teach him his colors. So here
Oh,
we've
yeah.
got Kai and his grandma, which
Oh,
that's
that's
supposed to be me and Kai. And then, I've got a page for each color
oh,
and then the
beautiful.
different things that are in
What
them.
it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh,
these are all things that he's seen before,
yeah.
right?
There's so
So,
there's so much similarity in our lives, as we were talking, this podcast could go on for hours. As we were talking, the other day. So my son-in-law, the one I told you just brought over the baby the other day or yesterday,
right?
he's colorblind. And
Oh,
thank God EJ is not. But he's so colorblind, it's not even funny. And he'll come out with the craziest outfits. And my daughter's like, no, 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 no. And he said, well, and she said, I can't believe I have to like teach a husband and work with the colorblind piece of it. And I go, well, look, everybody has a problem. My husband is not colorblind. I still had to teach him what fashion was, right? So we all have our challenges. But that is hilarious that he happens to be colorblind and has that same, oh my gosh, that is cool. Yeah, I love that you put that all together. And so I'm seeing little pieces of this is don't just write a book, do a workbook, maybe do a podcast about the book, do coloring books about the book for kids. And, there's a lot, I put a game together, whatever it is. I see that these are some of the creative pieces that you're encouraging for your authors, to do as well. And I know it's just a little snippet of what you do. Kelly, what would you like to leave us with? Is you've talked about you being a burn victim. You've talked about the scars in life that we all have and overcoming them. You've also talked about, writing a book and being a publisher and getting your message out there, so that you can help others. What do you want to say to those that are listening to kind of put a bow on all of this?
Oh, it's a quote that I came up with when I wrote my first book. And it reminded me of how something that my grandma used to say. Now, my grandma and I, we had a great relationship, but for some reason, she felt that dreams were never going to come true.
It's an era.
And that must be what it is, because I couldn't understand how she could believe that. So anyways, I came up with a quote that says, dreams are meant to be found, not tucked away in dreamland. So my message is, if you've got a dream to do something, just do it. Don't let the naysayers stop you. Because if I would have listened to my husband, who was trying to convince me that I was not good enough to be a speaker, I wouldn't have impacted over 10 million people. I wouldn't have impacted all these people at all. And so I really believe that if someone is telling you, no, you can't do it, you've got to find someone who can tell you, yes, you can do it. And then go after that dream.
I love that. And guess what? Everybody knows on this podcast why I love that, because I have a book called Tell Me I Can't.
Oh, that's right.
And watch what I do. Like, that's what mine is. Like, tell me I can and watch me do it. Right. And everybody has a different response, to it is what, tell me I can and get out of my way. Somebody else said, I said, tell me I can't. What would you respond? And he goes, bless your heart. Tell me I can and bless your heart. Which is Southern for get right.
Jen, I am so glad that you reached out to me, because when you meet people, like, or you see people, like at the Marketers Cruise, there was 450 people. And so sometimes when you look at people, you instantly judge them and you think, I don't know if that person would be a good person for me, or if I would like that person, or what, and you and I both know that everybody judges people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so, and I remember when I was a young girl, I wouldn't talk to the pretty girls. And I know you and I were talking about that on our first phone call, is about how we both got judged.
People are. Yeah.
And people judged me for being, the Scarface girl, and people judged you for being so beautiful. And it was like, so sometimes people don't reach out to other people because they're so judgmental.
Well, yeah, or intimidated either way, right?
Intimidated. I think that's the word.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, one way or another, right? And and it can be challenging. And I think, but it's not just you having scars, and it's not me having my parents' DNA. Not me. It's not me. It wasn't me. I always do that song wasn't me. It's not that, but it's everything in between. It could be the way someone's dressed. It could be the way that how tall someone is, how fat someone is, they have this color hair, or that color hair, or this color skin, or that color skin. It's all like that. And we just, a dear friend of mine, Dr. Greg Reed, he's the founder of Secret Knock, has his acronym TTE, which is talk to everybody. Because
that's so smart.
You never know who you're sitting next to. You absolutely never know. And I experienced that myself personally, and it was brought to fruition yesterday at the Super Bowl. And I'll tell you about it after. Yeah, that, and if you want to know about it, you have to put it in the reviews that you want to know about it, and then I'll bring it to you. But yeah, but I'll tell that story. But it's just been a pleasure getting to know you. I can't wait. I think we have a long friendship ahead of us, and supporting and helping one another. So I thank you so much for being on the show. And if someone wants to get in touch with you, we have all of your links, but what is your best way to get in touch with you?
Well, the best way would be my website. I don't think I told you, but my Facebook got disabled.
Oh no.
Yeah, at the end of summer, and so I lost 15 years worth of contacts and everything. So now I'm starting at the bottom. So
yeah.
So that's why I say probably my website would be the best part. You go to kellywoodhouse.com, and then you'll find everything there. So
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Well, I have a link for Facebook, but hopefully it's your new one.
It should be. I hope
Okay.
so.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. Okay, well, that sounds good. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for bringing so much wealth and such a diversity of topics to talk about. Each one of these could have been a podcast all by itself. And I appreciate what you're doing for speakers in the world, for them getting their message out, and for those that are receiving it, and what you've done for our listeners here today. So thank you again for being here.
Good. Thank you so much, Jen. Love it.
Absolutely. And thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be with us. We sure appreciate it. Please remember to go over to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you can see this and other podcasts that I have, as well as podcasts that I've been a guest on, and subscribe and follow us wherever we're going. We appreciate that. And last but not least, please take a moment to just use your right thumb or your left thumb and scroll down and write us a great review and give us a rating, and say something that you loved about what Kelly said that changed your life, so that we can give that feedback to her. And then until then, we'll catch you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Success to Significance with Jen Duplessis, the #1 podcast for people wanting to give more value and make an impact. Loved this episode? Be sure to subscribe right now at www.jenduplessis.com/S2S for more stories, strategies, and thoughts to help you gain significance and success. And if you like what we're doing, don't forget to give us a rating and review, so we can continue to bring you the best content possible. Join us next week for another breakthrough episode. Thank you for listening.